I'm not even gonna make the speech anymore. You know how it be. Adult life, right? Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is October. This is Nerdboy Reads, a channel in which I talk about the stuff that I be reading. To be it books, manga, manhwa, whatever it is, I talk to you about it. It is officially Gear 5 day for the One Piece fans across America, and I'm recording a video because I'm waiting for my friend to get here so we can have a watch party for it. So while I'm waiting, I'm finally going to tell you about most of the books that I read during the next quarter of 2023. That is the months of April to June. Approximately. Since I don't keep TBRs, I do not keep track of really what I've read a month. I probably should start doing that, but this is approximately how many books I read from April to June. The total number of books that I am at right now is 45, meaning I am only 5 books away from my goal, so I should be able to meet it before the end of August. However, I'm not going to talk about all 25 books that I've read from April to July. I'm only gonna narrow it down to approximately the June time frame. So that's what I'm gonna be doing, and we're just gonna go ahead and start. I did read a good chunk of books. I am not gonna spend so much time talking about each one individually. I'm gonna try to narrow it down into 3 sentences or less. Yes, I know that sounds like a cop-out for, oh, he probably didn't read all the books he said he did. I did. Trust me, I did. I just want to get this over with because it's been a while, and I want to be ready to watch Gear 5 whenever my friend says go. So we're just gonna go 3 sentences or less, my impression of the book overall. The first book I read was The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. This is about Ropa, who is a ghost talker. Something like that. She can talk to ghosts, and she gets roped into solving crimes after she and her friend discover mysterious children that have aged like decades over the course of one night. So she gets roped into solving the crimes with her friend, and shenanigans ensue. The 3 sentences I would describe this book as: the tone is very conversational, and I don't know how I feel about it. The main characters feel very young, and I don't know how I feel about that in an adult book. And it kind of felt incomplete because I guess this is going to be a trilogy, but it did good enough for the world that it was building and all that good stuff. So all in all, it was a good book. I did read the second book. You'll hear my thoughts about that soon, but all in all, it was a good book. Next, we have Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I believe this is his first book in like a 10-year anniversary edition or whatever. This is about a normal man who gets roped into an extraordinary world after helping a girl who wears too many clothes, essentially. The three sentences I have for this book is: it does feel very first book-ish. It gives off very similar vibes to House in the Cerulean Sea, and the marquee was the best part of the book. Overall, it was a very first book. That's about it. It was a good book. Very nice vibes. Go into it if you liked House in the Cerulean Sea, because it's not exactly the same book, but the vibes are very similar. The next book is The Last Quintista, I don't know how to pronounce this word. This is a Spanish translated book about a girl who gets selected to go into a world after Earth has been, deemed unlivable and it is ending. So her and her family get selected to move on to this other world, and she discovers more sinister things happening because of the people who are on this trip. The 3 sentences I would describe it as: it gives off a more serious vibe of that the comedy Where the World Ends. It's on Netflix. Everyone has seen it. It has Timothée Chalamet in it and a bunch of other people, and it's like that. It hit a lot harder than I thought it would, because I didn't really have expectations going into this book, and it was definitely a cover buy that I do not regret. The story was phenomenal, the world building was great, I enjoyed all the characters and watching them get their humanity back, and I will definitely reread this if I get a chance. Next, we have the internet's darling, Project Hail Mary, about a man who is a lone survivor of a trip into deep space, trying to figure out what's going on with the stuff that is pretty much about to throw the world into a new ice age, and along the way he meets an alien. The 3 sentences I would use to describe this book is: it's a pretty basic Andy Weir book. Andy Weir really only knows how to write one character, and he uses it across all three of the books that I have read from him. And the alien aspect was great. I enjoyed them trying to learn how to communicate with each other. I enjoyed the alien in general and how they really adapted to each other and became quick friends because they were both part of a similar mission on different worlds, and they're both the last survivors, so they have to get along. And that's about it. It was a pretty basic Andy Weir book. That's about it. The next book I have read was a book that I cannot hold up for you because it was my friend's book and it was just on loan, and it was called Sign Here, and it's about a man who works in hell and tries to get his life back, essentially. It's a dual perspective book about that man and then a family who is pretty much falling apart at the seams trying to recover themselves with this family trip that goes awry. The three sentences I would use to describe that book was, hell is really a shitty company, isn't it? Everyone literally hates everyone for seemingly no reason just because it is hell, and for a book about hell, it actually wasn't that gross. I was expecting a lot worse. It was a really good book. It was a really fun read. I did not expect all of the things that the author put into trying to describe what hell is and how mundane it actually is. Like, hell is a shitty company, and it is the mundanities in life that just get on your nerves and you cannot escape them. So it was a fun read. I expected it to be worse because it was about hell, but it didn't really go there. So I'm kind of grateful for it, especially with some of the aspects it touched upon. And that's about it. And next we have Angel of the Crows. This is literally just a Sherlock Holmes fanfiction. I didn't expect it going in, but I was very pleasantly surprised, especially in the end where in the acknowledgments the author really just said, no, this is a fanfiction, so I adore that. The three sentences I would use to describe this book are, it's actually just fanfiction. If you like fanfiction, read this book. The world building and the characterizations are great, and I think about this book regularly. It lives in my head rent-free. This book, the way that it meshes the elements together from like fan fiction tropes and actual Sherlock Holmes plot points are phenomenal. It felt like its own thing and a proper like stay up till 3 a.m. reading fan fiction type thing. I really appreciated all the aspects of the book that it touched upon for like being non-gender conforming in the Victorian era when it's pretty looked down upon to do that, how war vets are treated and keeping secrets, and it was a phenomenal read. I highly recommend it. It deserves more love, plus the cover is stunning, which is another reason why I picked up this book in the first place. We have Hexed. This is the second book in the Iron Druid Chronicles. This is about Atticus, who is the last Iron Druid in the world, and he's just trying to survive pretty much. I can't go into more detail than that because this is a second book, and the third book is coming up here soon, so be expecting that. The three sentences I would use to describe this book is, I love this series so much, but I honestly still cannot recommend it because of all the previous grievances that I've had with it. I'm starting to hate the dog character, which is not something I would usually suspect happening, and starting to see how Kevin Heron writes stories by weaving threads through his other books to make room for the next books in the series, and I really appreciate that. All the issues that I had in the first book really shine through on this book. All the characters feel college age or younger. He cannot write female characters to save his life, and but I do love this series. I love the way he combines all of the world's religious aspects. I love how fun these books are, and they're easy to get through, and I'm definitely going to finish this series, and it's probably going to be one of my favorites of the year. I'm not even going to lie to you. Then we have Itachi's story, Midnight. This is the second book in the Itachi duology about Itachi and his young life, showing where he was from birth to where we pretty much see him in the Naruto series. This one was depressing. I think everyone who watches Naruto knows what Itachi did about slaughtering his family, but this really gets into the politics behind it. very fantastic. 3 sentences I have to describe this book are, is it canon or is it not? Like, there's a debate about it being canon. Please let this boy get a nap. He really needs it. And this is a great conclusion. I really enjoy Itachi's losing of his humanity after he's forced to like realize that slaughtering his entire family is the only way to keep everyone safe, keep the peace essentially. It's a great duology. I highly recommend it, especially if you love Itachi and you just think he deserves better, because he really does. He's just a sweet boy put in a bad situation, and he's done nothing wrong. Then we have the Cthulhu Case book, Sherlock Holmes and the Shadwell Shadows. This is the first book in the James Lovegrove Holmes trilogy, because apparently now on Goodreads they're listing this trilogy as a trilogy and then the other 3 books as their own thing, like standalone novels. I don't know. Either way, this is about the truth about how John Watson and Sherlock Holmes met. This is essentially one of those, another fanfic tropes of like retelling, but I was making it up to make it sound better than it actually was. You feel me? The 3 sentences I would use to describe this book is, it is a dark Sherlock Holmes retelling, obviously based on the cover and the title. Love the characters in this book, how they're a lot gruffer and meaner than they are, I believe, than in any other retelling that I have read. And the way that this author meshes the Cthulhu, the eldritch horror elements with the Sherlock Holmes detective elements are seamless. I really love this book so much. The next 2 books are nearly impossible to find. They're like out of print everywhere. I just managed to get my hands on the second one, and I'm still looking for the third one, which is pretty out of print. Like, it's not even in the warehouse apparently, so I'm gonna have to really spend a lot of time looking for those. But it's a great series. If you love Sherlock Holmes, if you love Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft's elements, read this book. It's phenomenal. And then, as promised, we have Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments. This is the second book in the Library of the Dead series. I'm just going to go ahead and call it that. This is the continued adventures of Ropa and her trying to make it as a ghost talker, being a poor black girl in London. The 3 sentences I would describe it as, it's starting to feel like everyone's just trying to bring this girl down for nothing, almost. I'm not going to call it misery porn, but it's definitely starting to like feel that way, where she can never get a break, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. That being said, I definitely did have more fun with this book than I did the other one. I liked the mystery elements more, and really seeing how the treatment of magical illnesses work in this world. And the ending, really, another part of it felt very incomplete, which apparently means that they're going to have a 3rd book. I don't know when that got announced, but I kind of can't wait for it. Yeah, I can't really say much about this because apparently there is a 3rd book coming out, but I might pick it up. So yeah, I'm definitely probably going to have to pick up the 3rd book for this series to really get my thoughts in order about it, to see if it was all worth it, how Ropa being so miserable in the world really feels worth it. So you're probably going to have to wait till I get the 3rd book to really compound my thoughts about it. So yeah. Then we have, so this is Ever After. This is about a party of adventurers who finish their mission and then have to deal with everything else that comes after it. Like the politics. You just killed a leader who just was a political figure for the last like 80 years. What do you do to stabilize the nation now that the fear of being annihilated at any second is lifted? The 3 sentences I would use to describe this book as, it is definitely made for an audience of people who are younger than I am. A lot of these problems that these characters were having could have been solved if they just talked to each other. And a lot of the characters didn't feel fleshed out to me. They felt pretty standard for the part of the class that they were in, the race that they were in. They all felt pretty basic to that. So if you read this book, go into it. It is LGBT, so I will give a point in that direction. But it was very young, it was very cliche, it feels like no one's just talking to keep the plot moving, but talking would have solved the plot in like half of the time. So, pretty meh, honestly. Speaking of really meh books, we have A Beautiful Blue Death. I'm pretty sure I put this on one of the I really want to read this book before 2023 is over list, or a high-ranking stars list, and I really regret it. The 3 sentences this is a murder mystery about a man who is an amateur detective, and yet he gets called to do everything around the town, and it's pretty basic. The 3 sentences I have to describe this book are, it is pretty basic, everything is pretty meh, all the characters feel like characters, there's no real depth to them. The mystery was really meh, there's nothing really keeping me attached to anything in the story, and honestly, I'm probably going to end up getting rid of this series. I genuinely can't remember anything about this book. I remember him being membered to a lot of clubs, like a lot of social clubs. I remember him being pretty Gary Stu, like he's just a guy's guy. That's about it. I do not think I'm going to continue on with the series because it was really boring. It should not have taken me this long. It should not have taken me as long as it did to read this shorter book. Honestly, I wasn't feeling it, so I highly doubt I'm going to feel the next 4 books that I have for it, so. Then we have Winter's Orbit. This is another political fantasy about a arranged marriage between the last heir, like the last choice of a nation, who gets married to a recently widower guy who is essentially was married to his cousin, and then them trying to navigate everything around being married, being political figures, and trying to figure out if the other actually likes each other. The 3 sentences that I have to describe this book are, this is definitely another book that could have been solved in half the time if the characters just talked to each other. Like, what is it with the authors of political fantasies not letting the characters talk to each other? Book definitely felt short for it being like a slow burn. It needed to be a duology at least. There was a lot of like standing around doing nothing, and then in the last like quarter of the book all these things started to happen, and it just almost kind of felt out of nowhere. Like, yes, there were mystery elements sprinkled in as you read, but it felt like everything just came rushing at you once you hit the last quarter of the book. And it kind of almost felt like there wasn't a lot of world building. Like, we get talks about all of these nations being under this nation, but we don't really understand why. We don't really see a lot of the different cultures, especially because one of the main characters actively tries to put down his own culture to make sure that he is fit to be married to this different higher ranked culture, and it really felt thin and just kind of focused more on the will they, won't they, even though we all know that they will, even though they hardly know each other aspects of the book, you know? It was well written, I'll give it that, but it kind of did feel like So This Is Ever After, like this was written for a younger audience than I am, because the entire time I was reading this book, I was just like, why don't you just talk? Why are you holding back elements from your partner? Why are you not just facing this stuff with a unified front? Why are you just not sitting down and talking? So there is another book set in this universe. It's like a companion novel. I'm not sure if I'm gonna read it because I'm not sure how I feel about this one based on all the elements that I just listed. So cover's pretty. Then we have Tell Me I'm Worthless. This is about 2 former friends who end up having to get back together and try to form their friendship again, or face this trauma that happened to them in a haunted house, and just go about being life as a trans person and a transphobe. not the same person. One of them is a trans person and one of them is a transphobe. And I put this book on my most recent 5-star reads list. I do remember that. It definitely was not a 5-star read. The 3 sentences that I have to describe this book is, it is definitely not a 5-star read. Like, I was not scared, I didn't care about any of the characters, and it didn't do anything for me. There is a trope in here that I hate, that transphobe is secretly a trans person element. I hated that, so that's the other thing that I want to bring up. And it didn't add any depth to the conversation. Like, it just threw all these elements in your face, like fascism and Nazism are bad, transphobia is bad, victim blaming is bad, without a lot of nuance to it. Like, we already know all of these things are true. Make it more fun than it was reading this book. I did not like it at all. I kind of want my time back, so that's about all I want to say about it. I remember a few things about this book, but I don't want to. I did not like this. I'm sorry. To the friend who loaned me this book thinking I would like it, I'm so sorry. I did not, so. We have Hammered by Kevin Hearn. This is the 3rd book in the Iron Druid Chronicles following Atticus as he is trying to make it in life. The 3 sentences that I have to describe this book are, I really don't have anything new to add to the conversation. Still college-age characters, still poorly written female characters, all that good stuff. I like that the dog wasn't there. Like, the dog wasn't there for more than half of the book. I'm pretty sure he was only in there for like a couple scenes, and I loved that. And I take issue with the pacing, mostly because near the end of the book, the height of all of the action and everyone's planning and we're getting ready to go into this big fight, they take the time to pause and just have everyone sit around and tell their life stories, and I really did not like that. It really broke the immersion, it really broke the vibe, and I kind of hated it. I really still love this series. I am going to continue on with it, and I really don't have much more to add about it. The next book we have is Trial of the Wizard King. This is the 2nd book in the Wizard King trilogy. That's really all I can say about it because I don't remember a lot of what happened in this book. The 3 sentences that I have to describe about this book are, this is middle book syndrome times 10. It felt like everything was just at a standstill and nothing happened. Like, it felt like things just kept happening to the characters rather than the characters moving the plot along. This guy really likes world building. I have come to that conclusion because he puts all of this history, this rich history, and all of these religious elements and stuff, and it's a really fleshed out world, but he doesn't put the same amount of time into crafting a story and building his characters. And finally, I'm really only going to finish this series to say I did. I'm not enjoying it. In fact, I may not even finish this series. I may do to this book like I did to the Caraval series and just give up on it after the 2nd book because I could not care less about any of these characters, any of the story elements, any of the world building, and I do not think I can drag myself through another one of these books, so. We have Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. This is my 2nd Nick Cutter book. This is a dual timeline book about this ragtag group of mercenaries who get hired to help a woman save her nephew from a cult, and I loved this book. The 3 sentences that I would have to describe this book are, Ebb is without a doubt the best character. He is funny, he is ruthless, he is just an all-around dude boy. It appears that religious trauma is a good horror subgenre to me. Like, this is the 2nd book that I've loved that had something to do with religious trauma. The 1st book was Hell Followed With Us, and then there's this. This was not the cult book that I was expecting. I think this is my 2nd cult book. 1st being, of course, Hell Followed With Us. And I really enjoyed the horror elements, the body horror elements. There's images in here. Like, this book actually has pictures in here, and they really add to the ambiance. I really enjoy the really getting into the mind of a cult leader and what would draw him to, this is gonna sound bad, what would draw him to killing all of his, like, fanatics. I really love this book. The perspective, like, switching perspectives from the mercenaries to the woman who hired them to the cult leader to some of the cult, like, people. It was an all-around good book. This is probably my favorite Nick Cutter book so far. I still haven't read The Deep, and I haven't read the other books that he's wrote. I believe he wrote 2 or 3 books under a pseudonym. I don't remember what they were, but I know I want to pick them up. But this is probably my favorite. Be warned going into it if you do pick it up. And yeah. And then finally, we have Black Tide. This book was phenomenal. This is about a couple of people who have a one-night stand and then wake up to discover that the world has ended or is ending. The 3 sentences that I would use to describe this book are, this is a really good example of how to write a one-day, one-setting book. This is phenomenal. It felt very well paced to me. I read some comments that said people have problems with the pacing, but I really felt that it was believable, mainly because I'm a pacing person, and if it doesn't feel like a believable pace, I will fix it in my head. But I didn't have to fix anything about this book in my head. There's a part in the book where a woman has to teach someone how to drive stick shift, and it felt very relatable how everyone was getting so frustrated. And since this was a one-day, one-setting book, I did not have time to believe that these people were actually going towards being in a relationship at the end. I love me a good, we went through something, so now we're together story, but that kind of story usually happens after they deal with a long-term trauma instead of a just one day quick, well, not quick because it's a long day, but still, one day did not make me believe that these people were ready to be in a relationship, and that's pretty much my only issue with it. There is a dog character in this book, so if you have an issue with that, please look up, does the dog die? I'm not going to go tell you whether or not the dog dies. That's something that you have to be wary about going in yourself. Like, there's a website that because this is what I did. I figured out that there was a dog character, I looked it up, and then I braced myself for whatever was going to happen. So do that if you will. But other than that, this was a really good book. Probably going to be on one of my favorites of the year, and yeah, really great summer read, by the way. I know that wasn't as long as it probably should have been for the amount of books I just threw at you, but like I said, I am doing this in the gap between waiting for my friend to watch Gear 5 and then just, like, waking up in general. So, like, I woke up and yada yada yada. But plus, like, editing hour-long videos is not something I want to do right now, so I just wanted to get something out because I haven't in a while. Next time I'll probably do a much more in-depth conversation about each book that I have read, but I didn't feel like doing that right now. And I'm pretty sure I gave enough detail, even though I only said that I was gonna do 3 sentences, to let you know that I did read all of the books that I said I was going to, and that's about it. I really have a lot more to say. I'm gonna go watch Gear 5. So, this has been the video. This has also been Nerdboy Reads. I have been October. Hope you liked this video. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I have listed, either in the last 3 months or just in general. What did you think about them? Did you agree with my sentences? Do you have your own sentences? Do you agree with my opinions? Should I give more books a chance that I said I was probably going to drop? Let me know in the comments. This has been it. I've been October. See you in the next video. Goodbye.